friendly and mean and nasty methods. And what happens is you get rid of them, or I get rid of them, for a period of time, but they always come back. And they always seem to get me in the end. So to be honest, what I've done is I've gone to container gardening. I've raised beds that have a lining of chicken wire or metal mesh, and they can't get through it. And it's great. It's actually better for my back because the raised beds are a little higher off the ground, so I don't have to bend over as far, and I get much better productivity from my garden, and the gophers are living over in the other part of the garden and happily eating whatever else is over there, and they don't bother me anymore.
So you're like in harmony with nature.
I am in harmony with nature. I fought for many years, and I have to say that I didn't win. They beat me. But I've learned to coexist with the gophers by going to container or to raised beds. And that's a great solution if people are plagued as I was, that you a little bit of construction activity, but once you're done, you're in great shape.
Maia and I have been working with, that's always the working. Maia and I have been designing a garden space, and now it's time to get those plants in the ground and see what will come out of it and grow. Before we plant, one thing that's important is just give everything a good drink. Good drink of water. Something to remember every time, just because for many cases plants have suffered the transportation between, say, the nursery and your backyard. So give everything a good drink and give it a chance to just kind of take in a little bit of water before you start planting.
Now my garden area furrows are done, but where to put the plants? What is your advice on how I strategize my plants in the garden?
Sure, well, we got to think height. The tallest in the back, your corn there, that'll probably get to 8 feet. That's going to be a tall crop. The tomatoes, where you have them here, are real good. They're probably going to get 4 or 5 feet. You know, I've seen tomatoes go even higher than that, sometimes as high as 6 or 7. Kind of in front of that, we have the peppers that'll get to about that height, 18 inches. The zucchini there, pepper as well, and then we have some open area in the front here. You could put some herbs in there, or maybe even some of the lettuces, whatever you don't want to put in the pots along the back. Yeah, this will work well. This is starter fertilizer, and it's a great addition to getting anything started, whether it be fruit tree or vine or vegetable. So
what do we need?
We're going to get maybe a handful here, and we're just going to seed the furrow with some of this. There you go.
More?
That's good. Just going to kind of seed things along here where we're going to be planting. And what this does is it provides nutrients and getting it started and keeping things going through the season. So about a handful here for that.
So you don't need a lot?
Not a whole lot.
Can people over-fertilize?
They can. So I always tell people to really pay attention. You know, for the 12 plants we're starting, you know, no more than a half a cup, or in the case of this, about a third a cup is going to be what we need. So
really, it's easy to over-fertilize because you think more is better.
That's right.
Okay. Finally, we're ready to put the plants in. Now, what's the secret for good transplanting?
Okay. You just kind of give the bottom of the 6-pack a good squeeze and shuttle the plant out. Remember that a lot of times it's not completely germinated in some instances. Look at that. That's just perfect. And then you take what's there, make sure that the root ball is broken up, and in this case, it's already ready to go. And now this is an important part. Now keep in mind, we're always looking for debris. So you can go ahead and get that guy.
Okay.
We're going to go down about 3 or 4 inches, open up a nice cavity, and set that corn in there, just like so. And boy, does that fit just perfectly.
Boy, it's amazing.
A couple 3-4 inches.
Now, how far do you bury the
root ball?
Yeah.
Just to about where you see
the top?
That top, yeah. That's looking real good. These tomatoes are What do we have? What
Sweet
variety is
100.
that? Oh, Sweet 100. You got some cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
They're going to get big, so it's something to keep track of.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to pinch back tomatoes. One thing to start with here, that starter fertilizer.
Just a handful or
A handful, a little bit more is okay.
All right.
And we're just going to seed that along here. Getting a good sized hole.
Okay.
Again, complimenting you on your soil. I mean, it's got really good loam to it. It's very dry, so you're going to have to keep in mind, we've watered these in advance, but one thing to keep in mind is you're really going to have to water this a couple of times.
Now, how much should you loosen the root ball? Can you be too hard on it and rip the roots?
You can be too hard, kind of giving it a light massage, breaking it up really gently.
No wonder the plants like
Not
him.
to disrupt it.
You give them a nice massage.
It helps. Then we'll sink that guy right in there. And let's just wrap the soil around it. And we get the other side there. Perfect. Well, the next step is to get everything watered now that we've got it planted. And boy, is it important. It takes at least a week, if not more like 2, for all of these plugs to get established. So giving them a good watering now, waiting a couple hours, watering them again, and watering them again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, until the soil is nice and moist, is gonna be beneficial. So we're gonna start by getting everything washed down, and then we'll start with some watering.
Hi there, my name's Christine Wyndham, and this is my Shangri-La on the Central Coast. Now, it didn't always look this way, so I'd like to show you some things that we did. Got this property 6 years ago, and this whole backyard was just grass. Just grass. And I wanted a focal point, but we didn't have a big budget, so we started with the rose garden. That went in 5 years ago. And as you can see, it's filled in quite nicely. And then when we got a little bit more money, 4 years ago, we put the beds in. So all these trees, I tried to create a windbreak here, as well as over on the east side, as well as a backdrop. I couldn't afford to have a house on the Central Coast in Carmel or down in Big Sur like I would have liked to. So I incorporated Big Sur with the coast redwoods. And my focal point here is a water feature instead of the ocean. So if you'd like, we can come back into the rose garden and I'll show you the veggie beds. So this section I wanted, to have plants and flowers, cutting beds, cutting flowers so that I could bring the outdoors in. And I wanted herbs that I would use, foods that I would use, and it's been kind of a test garden. Some things have lasted, like the sage, and other things come and go. But through trial and error, it's been a lot of fun. It's low maintenance. I put everything on the drip, so it's as low maintenance as can be. The honeysuckle's filling in nicely, and I wanted it to be a scent garden as well. So all the roses, except for a couple, are Old English roses, which means they have a heavy scent, and the angel's trumpets, and then all the herbs, including the geraniums. The geraniums are all scented. I love the concept of garden rooms, and one of my first inspirations were the gardens at Filoli, a grand estate that's just south of San Francisco. So there is a lot of wind in Salinas, and luckily I noticed when you're back in this garden, there's not much wind. So I tried to create more of a windscreen with the roses, and despite gusty winds in the main part of the backyard, you can sit back here and it feels like 75 degrees with no wind, which is nice. The time does fly, so I put a clock in the garden back here so I can keep on top of that. And I'll show you another garden room, or pathway I should call it, because it's really not a room. Come this way. I like to create paths because in life there's many paths that we can take, and one is to the Himalayas. If you just walk this way through the silk trees, it'll lead you to a Himalayan poppy and a cedar deodora, which are native to the Himalayas. And at the end of the path I put a little Stonehenge stack of rocks with a little peace rock at the base. So maybe you'll find peace if you go this way. And the last path that I have here just comes down this way and focuses on a little bird bath under a flowering plum tree. It's the least developed area of the yard, and I kind of want it that way, so it just cuts off nicely, makes you think, oh, it's so nice, and then you turn the corner and see all the weeds. But it is a nice path. It just draws your eye right to that one point, and that's all it needs to do, is go right there. So since I don't have the trust fund that I'd like to have, I created my little Shangri-La to incorporate a few different geographical areas that I love.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Begin in the Garden.
We'll see you next time.